Okay, so this first part is just basically saying if vectors u and v to be equal, in order for them to be equal, the components have to be equal. A has to equal C, B has to equal D. It's basically common sense that these two would have to be equal in order for the vectors to be equal. But the vector operations, to do u plus v, you add the components. To subtract them, you subtract the components. And the scalar multiplication, k is a scalar. Which means just a real number that's being multiplied to the vector. So here we're going to talk about some of the scalar multiplication. It can do three different types of things. The scalar multiplication can increase the length of the vector, meaning the magnitude. It can decrease the length of the vector, or it can change the direction of the vector. So if this is my original vector u, in order to get this vector here, you'd have to do 2 times u. In order to get from u to this vector here, you would have to do 1/2 times u. And in order to change the direction, what's going to happen is you're going to have to make it a negative u. So what that means is the increasing the length of the vector means that the absolute value of k is going to be greater than 1. If it's decreasing the length of the vector, the absolute value of k is less than 1. And changing the direction of the vector, k is less than 0. So in order to do this first sum, finding the sum of u and v, I have 2 plus -3 for my first component, -7 plus 4 for my second component, so this becomes -1, -3, and that is the new vector. That's the sum of u and v. The horizontal and vertical components are referring to that a and b. The a is the horizontal component, the b is the vertical component. So there's going to be some times where you're not going to have those components and you're going to have to find them. Well, if you need to find them, then you're going to be given other parts to it. You're going to be given the theta and the magnitude of the vector. And so in order to find that, you're going to be able to use SOHCAHTOA, and it will be the tangent. It will be sine and cosine. It's going to be the horizontal component is going to be, let's work it out here. Cosine of theta would equal the adjacent, which is a, over the magnitude of u. And then to solve for a, I would need to multiply by the magnitude of u. So I get the horizontal component is going to be a, which is equal to the magnitude of u times the cosine of theta. And for the vertical component, that's b, sine of theta is equal to b divided by magnitude of u, and the same thing, multiply by the magnitude, and the b is equal to the magnitude of u times the sine of theta. So I have u is equal to ab, but that's also equal to magnitude of u cosine theta, magnitude of u sine theta. So to find the vector that has a magnitude of 6 and the direction angle of 15 degrees, I need to find the components of that. So I'm going to have to find a, I have 6 times cosine of 15 degrees and then to find b, 6 times sine of 15 degrees. And so my a is going to equal 5.79, which rounds to 5.8. My b is equal to 1.6. It was 1.55, which rounds to 1.6. So the vector is 5.8, 1.6. The unit vector is any vector with a magnitude equal to 1. Okay? So if vector v is a non-zero vector, then u is going to be the unit vector that's in the same direction as v. And to find u, you take the vector v, divide it by the magnitude of v, or it's the reciprocal of the magnitude of v times the vector v. So for this one, I first have to find the magnitude of v, and that's going to be the square root of negative 3 squared plus negative 4 squared. So that's going to be the square root of 9 plus 16. So that makes the square root of 25, which becomes 5. So now I'm going to do 1 over 5 times v, which is going to be 1 over 5 times the vector, negative 3, negative 4. And this is where that scalar multiplication comes in. So I have negative 3 over 5, negative 4 over 5, and that is my unit vector. Go ahead and take a second and try these two. I'll give you the answers in 10 seconds. So for number 8, you should have gotten the vector 17, 16. You first have to find 2u, multiplying that 2 with u, and that's 2, 4. 3v, multiplying 3 with v, and that's negative 15, negative 12. And then do 2u minus 3v, so when I do 2 minus negative 15, that becomes 2 plus 15, which is 17. 4 minus negative 12 is 16. And find the magnitude, which is 13 here. Multiply by that, it's reciprocal to the vector, and I get 5 over 13, negative 12 over 13. And that's all. If you have any questions, come see me during office hours.